Hello, YouTube. Welcome to my Shakespeare series where I'll be just, it's not going to be like academic or anything. I just want to cover why I recently got into Shakespeare, love Shakespeare, why he's my favorite writer. The title's inflammatory. I don't care if you think Shakespeare is the best writer or not. I haven't read enough to say so either, so I'm not, it's just get clicks. But, I've read his four great tragedies, that are considered as great tragedies: Othello, Macbeth, King Lear, and Hamlet. And King Lear is my favorite, and yeah, it's my favorite thus far, I think. And before I get into it, I just want to say why me misconceptions about Shakespeare. The first is that it's melodramatic and you can't really relate to the language or the characters. I think that's bullshit, to be quite honest. What Shakespeare does, which is I guess contrary to like what's considered good art, film, whatever nowadays, is Paul Cantor. I listened to some of his lectures on just all the tragedies I've read so far, and he says the Aristotelian idea that to really get the sense of whatever emotion or character or et cetera, Shakespeare's trying to portray, he attacks or he portrays the epoch of it. So he portrays the let's just take King Lear. King Lear is the most epic fall from grace you can write because he's a king. He's had authority and dominion over everybody and all things his whole life, and he completely gets washed out and he becomes a beggar, not beggar, but like a hobo, a vagrant. He loses all of his power. He loses all of his family and besides Kent, he loses all of his comrades or subordinates. But and again, like Hamlet is the most extreme version of somebody who is paralyzed by thought and is really smart but can't fix their actions by thinking or speaking alone, and they can't, and they're stuck and they're depressed and they're et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, let me get into King Lear. And also, Shakespeare is not corny or again, maybe melodramatic, sure, but not corny. Just because you've seen a poor version of Romeo and Juliet, or you read Romeo and Juliet in high school, and you think Shakespeare is a fluffer cornball, basically, is wrong. Shakespeare is not corny at all if you read it and watch a good acted play. For the series, I just want to preface, I have reread King Lear, so I've read the play twice. I've seen two adaptations. I saw the Royal Theatre King Lear, which starred Ian McKellen, and I've seen Ron by Akira Kurosawa, which is they're both so good. Honestly, it's I haven't found a good play of Hamlet yet. I really didn't like either of the portrayals. It felt like worse. It's because I think it's such a hard character to nail down. But King Lear, both Ron and the Ian McKellen version, I heightened my understanding and experience of the text. So that's all good and fun. Okay, let me get into King Lear. Oh, and I watched two lecture series. I watched Marjorie Garber from Harvard and Paul Cantor from Virginia, University of Virginia. And Marjorie Garber just kind of outlined a lot of the themes, and just it was a general discussion. And Paul Cantor explained the political aspect of King Lear. So let's begin. All right, I'll start with the titular character, King Lear. And again, I'll explain again. He's the most tragic character of his plays I've read so far because he's not a evil person, I don't think, by any stretch of the imagination. He's been so used to getting his way, like again, like they say, he became old before he became wise because no one ever said no to him, right? And the play opens up with a farce where he's assigning his land to his daughters. And the reason Cordelia so offended him is because she refused to do what he says, and he thought that like an ultimate act of disobedience to him because he's so delusional with his power and with his childish maturity, pretty much, that what Cordelia is really doing is just not trying. She doesn't feel a need. I mean, she's being stubborn too. She's not a perfect angel because she could have done the correct political decision, and it would have probably had more of a better moral outcome, or better what is it called, utilitarian outcome. So she was kind of stubborn in that regard. But King Lear, he banishes her because it is seen as an ultimate act of betrayal because he's so caught in his power. And again, Paul Cantor, this is not my idea, but he was saying kind of like the Plato Republic idea, that you can't, it's almost impossible for like a leader or somebody who's amassed a huge amount of power to even be a good person in some ways, or be sympathetic, because it's like, it's so hard. I mean, if I was like the president of the United States, my sympathy, or if I was super ultra rich or whatever, my sympathies would probably go to the wayside, because you get so high in your own supply of superiority or wealth or power. It's so hard to see the humanity in things and people in the world. But anyway, yeah, so he makes a horrible judgment call in the beginning of the play, which is the ultimate, because he does love, it's because almost he loves Cordelia the most that he is so offended by her seeming betrayal. Well, I'm gonna wet my lips. I'm drinking some Monaco right now. But yeah, that sets off the tragedy of King Lear, and I'm just gonna go King Lear for a while, but and it's definitely the most emotional. At least it touched my heartstrings. The play. I mean, it's just sad, right? It's like an old man who is stubborn, and he's proud, and he has all the power in the world, and he's never been told no. And he goes from that to his daughters, basically saying, fuck him, like, let's go, like, we'll kill him if we have to, make sure he never sees the light of day in our kingdom or our plot of land again. He's old, and people won't say it to his face, but people think he's old and foolish, but they can't say it to him, besides, the fool. But, and it's just very profound, and, because it's really the ultimate destruction of his ego in some ways. If you want to go like, I'm into like Buddhist thought and stuff, but it's very much like going from everything to nothing, and it's like the duality of power, or men's own value of themselves, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's especially tragic because he's old and he's never had this kind of experience where he's nothing. He goes from everything to nothing. I mean, again, a quote in the play: "They told me I was everything," and yeah, and again, he goes, he has dementia, as far as I can tell, like a portrayal of it where and I think I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but I think dementia sometimes can occur by like a traumatic incident that happens to you, and I think very much losing his daughters was that. And again, at the end of the play, when he loses everything and he kneels to his daughter Cordelia, he's like, "How can you ever forgive me?" And then he finds, the tragedy is that he finds true love. I mean, not that he didn't have love before, but he finds true love, disentangled from all the power and the power plays and his kingdom. He finds true love in right before he dies, and that's a tragedy. Is that he lived his whole life with this pitiful idea of what love and loyalty and respect really are, and then his daughter dies too. Now I want to touch on, I don't think King Lear is a nihilistic or pessimistic play, nor is it optimistic. But a huge thing to me that, again, not my own idea, but I'll elaborate it in my own words, but Shakespeare is essentially kind of putting out the idea, again, you can read whatever you want to Shakespeare, I'm just saying this is what I got from it. There, in civilization and politics and society, there's little room for the most exuberant love that we have for each other and community, and it gets nullified in some ways. But at the other end, it also cuts off the extreme evils and people who would just trample over each other or feed on each other like beasts of the deep. Like I'll just say example. Gloucester, King Lear, Cordelia, I might be forgetting others, but let's just take those three. They are, for the most besides King Lear, they are just very, they value love and honesty and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they die for it. There's no place for them. It's too, the world that the civilization we've created doesn't have a place for this really bountiful love and joy, or not joy, but bountiful loyalty to other people. It doesn't really reward that. And but on the other hand, Edmund, Regan, Goneril, what's that servant's name? Osric? No, not that's in Hamlet. I think Oswald, whatever. The servant for Goneril or Regan, whatever. They died too because there is, or Cornwall. They died too because there is no place for outstanding treachery. Not that there isn't in places of power, but you can't be, when you feed on each other like beasts of the deep, as it says in King Lear. There's no, you feed on each other, you get eaten too. If your only goal in life is to dominate other people, you're gonna get dominated in some way or the other, or you're gonna have a tragic fall from grace where you can't. It doesn't sustain itself. Being evil and manipulative and Machiavellian, it doesn't sustain itself in a good way. But what else? I don't want to make this too long. I just wanted to make a 15, 20-minute video. So, what else is there? Oh, Edmund. Edmund's a very interesting character in some ways because, again, he's very much a Machiavel, and he's, a lot of Shakespeare characters they have that thrust for power, that like Nietzschean will to power, or whatever you want to call it. And I think in some ways the reason Edmund became so power hungry is because his father treated him well. He knew he was never going to get the king any land or any true power, but his father gave him like enough crumbs of respect, and like he probably had good schooling and whatnot. And he's a good character. I don't think he's a good person, but he's not necessarily ultra evil. I think Goneril and Regan sometimes revel in their evilness in some ways. But he's very interesting because, again, he fails because he feeds on his brother and he feeds on his father, and he has no respect. And again, in some ways, he's been told he shouldn't have any respect, so why would he give it to others? It's kind of, I think he's actually a tragic character in his own right. And he's jealous of his brother. And again, it's like, I don't know what you call it, Luciferian. I stole that from some student in Marjorie Garber's lecture said that, but yeah, I mean that's kind of what he is. He's not necessarily completely evil, but he's so disillusioned from how he's been treated, and he's had a little taste of the fruit, but he wants the whole ass apple, basically. So yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just a really good written play, and it's tragic. And I think I'm just gonna read some of my favorite passages. Let me get in the book. That's about like the major ideas I want to spell out. Let me just get this. I'll just read some of my favorite lines because I think it's important. I read the second time mostly out loud, and it was great. I really liked reading out loud when you understand the language and stuff. I mean, it's really is a beast to kind of get into Shakespeare. He's not as dense as people say, and yet he's very, very dense as a writer. But it's fine. Let me start off with the ending. I really like this passage. The weight of the sad time we must obey. Speak what we feel, not what we ought to say. The oldest have borne most. We that are young shall never see so much, nor live so long. Beautiful. And again, the reason I like Shakespeare is language itself. I think English, like, people focus too much, not that Shakespeare doesn't have content, but the substance is in the style for me in like literary fiction, for example. It just is. Like, the beauty of words, it's like music with good lyrics. It just sounds like shit though. Why do you want to listen to that? I don't. And Shakespeare really hits both nails on the head. But let me see. Oh, King Lear, as he's going away to prison with his daughter, and he doesn't give a shit anymore. Basically, he just wants to be with his daughter. And this is a no, 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 no. Come, let's away to prison. We two alone will sing like birds in the cage. When thou dost ask me blessing, I'll kneel down and ask of thee forgiveness. So we'll live and pray and sing and tell old tales and laugh at gilded butterflies and hear poor rogues talk of court news, and we'll talk with them too. Who loses and who wins, who's in, who's out, and take upon the mystery of things, as if we were God's spies. And will wear out in a walled prison packs and sects of great ones that ebb and flow by the moon. Oh, wonderful. Now I'll do let me go way back here to Edmund's first speech. And this is Edmund railing against his position in life. Basically, he doesn't like the hand he was dealt, so he wants to make a new one. It's pretty good. It's powerful. Again, Edmund's a very driving character. Like, he's likable in some weird way because of his ambition. Thou nature art my goddess, to thy law my I'll redo that. Thou nature art my goddess, to thy law my services are bound. Wherefore should I stand in the plague of custom, and permit the curiosity of nations to deprive me? For that I am some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother, why bastard? Wherefore base? When my dimensions are as well compact, my mind is generous, and my shape as true as honest madam's issue, why brand they us with baseness, bastardy, base? Who, in the lusty stealth of nature, take more composition and fierce quality than doth, within a dull, stale, tired bed, go to the creating a whole tribe of fops. Got tween asleep and wake? Well then, legitimate Edgar, I must have your land. Our father's love is to the bastard Edmund, as to the legitimate. Fine word, legitimate. Well, my legitimate, if this letter speed, and my invention thrive, Edmund the base shall top the legitimate. I grow, I prosper. Now, gods, stand up for bastards. That's great. And it's just it sets up his character so well, like just his whole character arc, basically. Um, Let me get. Okay, my mic just skipped a beat there. Um, Let me just find something from Act 3, and then I'll close off this video. Oh, I know. This this the fool. Let me find it. Sorry. Oh, this is a brave night to cool a courtesan. I'll speak a prophecy ere I go. When priests are more in word than matter, when brewers mar their malt with water, when nobles are their tailors' tutors, no heretic spurned but wenches' suitors, when every case in law is right, no squire in debt, nor no poor knight, when slanders do not live in tongues, nor cut purses come not to throngs, when usurers tell their gold in the field, and bawds and hoards do churches build, then shall the realm of Albion come to great confusion. Then comes the time who lives to see Then comes the time who lives to see it, that going shall be used with feet. Okay. I'm gonna do more on Shakespeare. I was thinking of doing literature in general, like Moby Dick or the King James Bible. I'm not a Christian per se, but it's a pretty beautiful work of art as literature. Um, or like Faulkner. But anyway, I think I'm gonna do. It's easy to reread Shakespeare and get a lot out of it. So I'll probably just continue this. Again, I don't know if I'm trying to get people to like him. I don't really care. Like, I think he's fallen out of favor so much. Like, he's been worshipped so much that it's almost had the opposite effect where people kind of disregard him. And he is just, a marvelous writer. But yeah, I recommend watching the King Lear adaptation by Akira Kurosawa called Ron. A great movie on its own. You don't need to read King Lear or watch King Lear to like it or understand it. And then the Royal Theatre. Probably any King Lear done with Ian McKellen. He does such a fantastic job at nailing like the old man character. Like it's marvelous and crazy. But anyway, have a good day, everybody who listened this far. Goodbye.